go to Bob McIntyre. You've been dealing with this forever. Should we just scrap the whole damn tax system? Or, is the system itself the crisis, or is this, do we have a frame that we should work in and that we can work in?
Well, we have to have a tax system.
I think so.
Or we can't.
I'm not sure Ron Paul is completely in agreement.
Well, Ron Paul has not just repudiated the 20th century, he's repudiated the 18th century. You may recall that we put people on Mount Rushmore because they were tax heroes. George Washington for putting together the Constitutional Convention that gave us the federal government the power to tax. Abraham Lincoln, who instituted the first income tax. And Teddy Roosevelt, because in a petulant moment he ran for president as a third-party candidate, split the Republican vote, and got the 16th Amendment adopted. The outlier is Jefferson, who was a bit of a kook on taxes, but he did buy Louisiana.
There you go. But you're basically saying we've got a framework.
We've got to have taxes. Now, there are a lot of people who would like to go back to the 19th century and have all of our taxes be sales taxes.
Flat taxes, we discussed, all these other things.
That's the Scientology movement's tax program, called, oddly enough, the fair tax, but there must be an acronym for something. And then you have the flat taxes like Dick Armey, who want to exempt rich people from taxes entirely and only tax the middle class. Louis Kelso was an interesting character, and his program was to try to get worker ownership of the company. And people have talked about doing that with tax programs. We have it now. It's called employee stock ownership plans, which has turned into a tax shelter for the rich capitalists, sadly.
So there might need some reform there.
Well, yeah. But the problem is any well-intentioned loophole always ends up as a tax shelter for the rich capitalists. It's one of the problems.
That's what my mother, Mary Nichols, who spent her lifetime as a tax preparer, always said. Said no matter how every tax reform is just a bunch of new loopholes. Let's go to this gentleman in the back row there.
Okay, excuse me. A question about capital gains. Have you made, there's been a lot of discussion about the difference in ordinary rates and capital gains rates. Conservatives will argue, although it's not their primary argument, that capital gains bases are not indexed for inflation. And so two questions on that. One is, in exchange for raising capital gains tax rates, would you also index the basis when calculating the actual gain? And secondly, how much of an impact would that have anyway? Has anyone had any idea what the dollar-weighted average year of, in excess of, gains that are exercised over a year? I mean,
terrific question. Who's going to give me? Who wants to grab a piece of capital gains? Bob?
It's been talked about, especially when inflation was high. Of course, it's low now, so it doesn't matter much. The problems are these. Number one, if you index gains and don't index debt, you've created a tax shelter. People will borrow money and deduct the interest, and the gains will be indexed, and you can make money by losing money because of the tax code. Number two, realizing capital gains is a voluntary thing. Most people who have a lot of them don't realize most of them. So we have already an exemption for something in the order of about 3/4 of capital gains. Any kind of break for the quarter that we do get seems to me to be unnecessary.